So actually, after I found the tumultuous petitioning act, I've just been searching for a few. I've tried to find the actual original version of the act. I think they probably got it in Kew Gardens, but I've just actually come across this paper by this Professor Karen Bowie of Glasgow University, and I've just read her paper, which is about 13 pages. She's actually got a lot of useful information in there about further acts and legislation, and also, some information about petitioning in the 1700s as well. There are a couple of discrepancies in her paper which I need to point out, and a few issues to raise with those. Actually, I think that she's actually pointing out and noting some discrepancies that we all kind of find that when we read these things. But I just want to... This main act that she's made us aware of, I didn't know about this act, this Claim of Right Act, which is meant to be a Scottish act but applies to England as well. Or it's meant to do. And it's got some extra wording and clarity for the right to petition. And I can't believe more people haven't been talking about this. But she only actually published this paper kind of more or less just before the whole COVID thing, just before we went into the whole COVID thing. So this is a relatively new paper. In fact, she was probably working on it while I was still looking into petitioning myself and doing the campaigns and so forth. But I've looked through this petition of right, and there's a few things that I wanted to point out and just note. And one of them, I'm going to do them one at a time in separate videos. This one, right, that prelacy, because the prelates, there are certain rights for the prelates as well. And there's also things to do with, evil and unjust ministers and judges as well in all this, using the petition in rights to combat criminals in the government. But he's talking about the prelacy, the religious order, that prelacy and the superiority of any office in the church, above presbyters is and have been a great and insupportable grievance and trouble to this nation, and contrary to the inclinations of the generality of the people ever since the Reformation, they have reformed from popery by presbyters and therefore ought to be abolished. It ought to be abolished or is abolished. Saying it ought to be abolished or is. But, just a minute here. Just check my intelligence for a second. But don't you think that if it's saying that the prelacy and the superiority of any office, says the word any office in the church, any office in the church above presbyters is and have been a great and unspotable grievance. But isn't that the king? Because clearly, from Henry VIII surely made himself head of the church. Isn't that like a superior office? Is that an office above all other offices in the church, making yourself head of the church? Surely. Or the archbishop. I know we've got various lords, spiritual and temporal in Parliament, and there are various bishops who can sit in the House of Lords and so forth. Do you not... Is that what you reckon from this, or what? Or is this only for one certain... It seems strange. Seems unusual. Seems very, very strange, doesn't it? I'm just typing this in now. 1509. Henry VIII. So mid 1500s. So this is like 1689. But it's saying that it's prelacy and the superiority of any office in the church. He says the church. It doesn't say any particular, it's not talking like Anglicans or Catholics or anything. It's just saying that the superior of any office in the church above presbyters is and have been a great and insupportable grievance and trouble this nation ought to be abolished. So is that is this trying to say that, the king should not be the head of the church and that we shouldn't have an archbishop? I mean, if I'm wrong on that, you tell me, but, I thought I'd point that out in this.